This month's video is coming to you from the field because I want to talk to you a little bit about everything that goes into our planning for what we do every single year to deliver to you best-in-class reliability. And these concepts are really, really cool and fun for those of us that are in the utility space, but can be a little hard to understand. So I thought going out in the field and showing you what I'm talking about would help. So first, we're going to start by looking at some overhead construction that we've done a lot of reliability upgrades on over the last few years. One of the first questions we get every single time we talk about reliability is, why don't you just put everything underground? And the answer is, a lot of the time, underground doesn't make sense. It either is way more expensive or perhaps would be very difficult to access in order to fix things if they went wrong, or maybe it's a part of our system where we have a loop feed, which we can talk about what that means at a different time, but a loop feed where it makes more sense to have that construction overhead. This is a perfect example of a space where it makes sense to keep it overhead. So if you look behind me here, what you're going to see is just miles and miles and miles of electric line that are right on the road, easy for us to access, no tree cover, so there's very little threat of tree-related outages. This particular line feeds the better part of Leelanau County, and so making sure that we can access it quickly in order to repair it quickly is how we can do the first step in restoring power should something happen. So here we are on a really big overhead to underground project that we completed in the last few years, and now that you've kind of seen what we do with overhead and how we make that construction more resilient, I just thought it would be really cool to take a second and talk about when we do underground construction and what goes into making that decision. So what you'll see behind me here is actually some overhead lines that are consumers' energy lines. Cherryland lines used to cut through there and head towards Lake Leelanau and go through the Narrows. We've now put all of that underground, so you see this little green transformer box back here. That is actually Cherryland's system, where there used to be overhead. It's now all underground. And when it comes to underground, there's a lot that goes into that decision. We're trying to make sure we're going to get the value for the cost, because in general, underground costs quite a bit more than overhead. Not in every situation, but in a lot of them. So we want to make sure that we're going to get maximum value for what we're investing on your behalf, because we know you care what the bill costs. We care for you what the bill cost. But we're also thinking about how hard it is to access something to fix it when it goes wrong, or how many people are fed off that particular part of our system and kind of what that's going to look like for them in terms of reliability perspective. So there's so much that goes into it. The better person to explain that for you is going to be our COO, Frank Siepker. So he's going to join me to talk through this particular project. What went into deciding to put this particular piece of line underground?
Sure, we had a lot of factors we were looking at as we talked about what to do with this line. One of the initial drivers was reliability. We've had several significantly long outages in this area over the last few years due to the fact it is a radial line. We don't have a loop feed. We can't back this up from anywhere. If we have a failure, if we have a broken pole, if we have a tree in the line, the only resolution is to make that repair before we can restore power. So there's about 2.5 miles of this line that are very deep right of way, very hilly terrain, and we also cross the Narrows at Lake Leelanau. And that whole area has limited accessibility and increases the delay of restorations. But it also gives us an opportunity for cost-effective underground. This project had a significant cost adder because of the Lake Leelanau Narrows. We had to drill horizontally, directional drill a path underneath the Narrows and pull conduit back that we could pull our cable through. But because of the complication of the overhead crossing, we would have had significant expense there and significant accessibility problems both for construction and for long-term maintenance.
So one of the things I find interesting about this particular project, while there's always a premium for underground versus overhead, the premium here wasn't as much because a lot of the environmental concerns you just described.
Right.
A lot of times I think when we say environmental in our industry, people think of like big picture environmentalism, but when we're on the ground doing construction, we're thinking about the impact our construction is having on the environment in which we're constructing. Yeah, so it's very fascinating as we move throughout our system. I know we've looked at overhead, we're looking at underground, there's different types of construction, different places. It's just every single location is unique.
Different.
And then that's where like the art of what you guys do comes in, because you have to sit there and say, based on this unique situation, what's going to provide the maximum value to our members while managing the cost, right? Being able to justify the cost. And you're thinking not just of the cost of the construction, but the cost of maintaining it or restoring it later if there's an outage.
Yeah, in these really remote locations, we may put a cabinet on an underground system every 1,000 or 2,000 feet, but we have to put a pole every 200 or 300. So the number of equipment locations, the number of maintenance points, the number of areas susceptible to damage is greatly reduced. If this was a populated area, we'd have to have equipment at every house. So those numbers go up and makes that more expensive and more challenging.
So we're standing now at the spot where the line goes under the Narrows in Lake Leelanau, and from here you can see all the way back to where this used to be overhead, about 1,200 feet that way. So Frank, talk to me about why, like, who does this line serve? Like, what is the impact of this line on our service in Leelanau County?
Yeah, again, this is one of the really unique lines for us, because not only is this line crossing very sensitive environmental areas, it's also serving the entire west side of South Lake Leelanau. We have about 600 members served on the other side of the lake that are serviced only by this line, with no ability to loop feed it, no ability to back it up with anything else. This is the only way to get power there for us. So it's super important to us. It's very critical, and the outage minutes add up really fast.
So this is one of those situations where when you look at the kind of vital scope or impact of an outage here, the potential challenges of restoring an overhead outage here from both a safety perspective, but also for a duration and how people be impacted, that also weighs into the decision of, like, underground just makes more sense when we look at all these different pieces. As we wrap up this kind of tour of the field and thinking about how we choose overhead underground construction, I want to leave you with 2 fun facts of the day. First, and this is a really, really cool one, and I want you to tell all of your friends. At the end of this year, Cherryland is going to be in a very unique position compared to other rural electric cooperatives. 50% of our system will be underground and 50% overhead. If you go back 50 years, we were like less than 10% underground, so we've really purposefully put stuff underground where it makes sense. We've also invested hundreds of millions of dollars in increasing the resiliency of our overhead system, and that's why we're able to deliver to you best-in-class reliability every single year. So fun fact number 1, 50% underground at the end of the year. Your fun fact number 2, next year we're going to go ahead and invest another $12 million on your behalf in continuing to make sure that we're keeping the system as reliable as possible, while also always running all of those investments through the lens of, is this the most cost-effective way to take care of our members?